Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Breakfast at Ruby's here. With me, I have Chalora. It's gonna be a two-person show today. It's gonna be great. We have a bunch of amazing topics that we want to get into. We are filming this, and we film this every week on Twitch. So twitch.tv/. Project Ruby is the place to be at. We do a little bit of a pre-show and an after show where we talk with chat and we answer questions and we get into a whole other set of topics that don't make the final show that you see on YouTube. So yeah, it's a whole lot of fun. Um, my name is Ruby. I'm a variety streamer on here. I do my talk shows, I do my gaming, I do my tarot, and I intend on dabbling into music and performance in the near future. So please stay tuned for that. And alongside me, like I said, I have Chilora. Would you mind doing a quick little reminder for everyone watching about who you are and what you
Hi,
do?
I'm Laura, and I'm a variety drag queen streamer on Twitch. Uh, I'm a member of the team Stream Queens. I think that's a good summary.
Yes, amazing. Um, one piece of, I guess, it's not really breaking news, but something that will get us talking about the tax system here on Twitch is some actually good news. So let's start with the good. There's finally a drag tag here on Twitch. Very exciting to have a place where I feel like no matter if you're on a stream queen team or if you're a part of any team that is LGBTQIA related, it's so nice to have a specific filter on that you can put on top of the LGBTQIA tag that you can tag even further and be like, okay, I'm looking specifically for drag performers, drag artists. So that's really cool. And it just literally happened yesterday. It was announced out of nowhere. Um, but unfortunately, it came with a little bit of a backlash as well because there's been I it's arguably there's been a higher request for other tags to be brought to the table that have to do with gender and they have to do with the LGBTQIA community, which obviously there's a bigger portion of people that do drag that are also a part of the LGBTQIA community. Um, but I actually talked about it in as I found out about it the other day. So I figured I would share a little bit of that with you guys watching, um, because I honestly think the any type of backlash that came from it was due to poor timing on Twitch's part because on social media there's been an uprise of the conversation of the LGBTQIA tag once again and people voicing their concerns and opinions about adding the gay tag, the trans tag, a bi, and ace, and all of the different identities that are within the LGBTQIA community. And unfortunately, it's such a horrible timing on their part to have this thing that is amazing for the community, for the drag community. I feel like it's something that is gonna benefit them a lot, but at the same time, it really like the timing just couldn't be worse. Wouldn't you agree, Chalora?
Um, for timing, I think, I mean, I am not as Twitter active. And there was the whole problem with the allies versus people being like, oh, you can't use it just to
Mm-hmm.
be an ally and then not act on it,
Right.
right? But that's a whole other kind of kettle of beans.
Oh yeah, we'll
Um,
get into it.
but I think that Twitch doesn't really look at what's going on in the current Twitterverse.
Yeah.
They were just kind of like, here's something new, and it's finally been approved, sort of, rather than because it's a corporation, it's not like streamer who
Right.
would look at it and say, this is proper. It's a corporation that's like, it's been approved, so it's done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, definitely they could use a social media manager that is more
Yeah.
involved with with streamer Twitter and more involved and aware of the conversations and the opinions going around. Um, One thing that was actually interesting about the announcement to me was that um, they kind of placed it on Deer for her to be the person who did the announcement. And for people who don't know, Deer is a very prominent and the leader of the stream team, the Stream Queens, who is basically the it team that includes everything drag, like drag artists from all
Mhm.
around. They get included in that team, which has been the hub for people to find drag on Twitch. So it's really cool that that has been broadened a little bit. And it's funny that Dear got that on her to announce, because then any sort of criticism went towards her rather
Well,
than
so
the
my
community, you know?
understanding of what went on there is that, and I mean, I might be wrong, but I think it was Deer that brought it up with a, a manager.
Mm-hmm.
So she discussed it because she's an ambassador for Twitch as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think she, from my understanding, she discussed it with somebody and they got it in motion. I think that she wanted to discuss something else. I don't know if she mentioned what it was or if there even was a second thing or we were joking or I don't know what. But
Yeah, I'm not aware of a
yeah,
second discussion.
but I know that the attack is kind of misdirected. Just
Mm-hmm.
she's just the messenger and like the person that put it the cogs in motion. It's
Yeah.
not really, you know. But from a different perspective, like I started streaming in 2017, and at the time it was kind of just two or three drag queens total, including myself on Twitch. So
Wow.
like, because when I first started, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go on YouTube and I'm gonna, make it big and all that stuff that
Right.
you
We
tell
all
yourself
we,
you
we all
you
go
get.
there.
Well, you're like, I'm gonna fit this niche.
Yeah.
Um, and I didn't really like how it was looking, so I looked at Twitch,
Mm-hmm.
and then I typed in drag. That's the first thing I typed in, and there was nothing. There was absolutely nothing.
Oh.
And so even like you type drag, you type drag queen, you get like nothing. And it's kind of weird because like I'm sure that they were using like in their titles probably like drag makeup or drag um and still like no results. So I didn't know about Deer or about Drag Trashly or about, some of the other drag queens at the time until they found me or, it was more through exploring the LGBTQIA plus tag.
Mm-hmm.
So now that there is a tag, I think it like kind of calls back to that time
Yeah.
when you couldn't look up drag artist.
No, absolutely. I agree 100% that it's kind of a misdirected criticism, because it is something that obviously, she asked for it and she got it, kind of thing. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, that's not the case with other tags, but that's not to say that it's her fault for not getting the tag, for not getting the trans
Yeah.
tag specifically, because that's the one that has been asked for since the tag system even, came into place. Um, and I do think that Twitch could have used this opportunity to bring both tags up and to have I did you're welcome, Twitch, for this idea, but you could have an opportunity where you would have a trans partner and a drag queen or a drag artist generally partner, and you could have both do a little bit of you know how they have those compilation videos at times
Yeah.
where they introduce people. I think it could have been a cool thing if they even asked both partners to, or not even
Well,
partners, to give a little bit of an insight of like the difference between drag and being trans, the difference between gender identity and gender performance.
well, I
um
think that we have some trans people on the team, partnered and not.
yeah.
I just think that it was. like I don't think she went in and she was like, "Oh, I'm not going to talk about the trans tag." Like,
Yeah, that's not, she had her mission, and
yeah,
we don't know what goes on behind closed doors. And obviously, from an outsider looking in, it seems like the discussion from Twitch's perspective is they want to add tags that represent the content and not the
right,
creator.
right.
um so, it's not her fault. If anything, I'm sure as a prominent member of the community, she probably was there being like, hey, what about that tag? And they probably told her that exact thing that I told you guys. They're probably, from Twitch's perspective, the way that I guess that they see tags is that they want to describe the content rather than the content creator.
Right.
um and I don't know if in their mind is to like protect the creator from being attacked for who they are, or
Well, like, how would you I mean, you could definitely display trans content, like talking about transitioning and stuff like that.
yeah.
Um, but I think it's pretty niche. Like, it's difficult to describe. Like, I'm sure the people that are for the tag, they have to create or look at like what exactly is trans content versus, other content. Is there a clear definition between this and that?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and like I'm probably going to get attacked for it, but like I think that it's difficult to split the whole LGBTQIA plus tag
Mm-hmm.
because like what would happen if we used a trans tag? Well, then we have to have a gay tag, a lesbian tag, a gender nonconforming tag, an agender tag, an asexual tag. You know what I mean? Like we have to
Yeah.
have all these new tags, and that's great. But I mean, personally, I like that it's all together and we can kind of like work together as one big community that all is all encompassing. I
Yeah.
think it would be nice to have like, you know, that small victory or I guess it would be kind of a pretty big victory,
Yeah.
um, just specifically for the trans community because they really need it,
Yeah.
um, especially right now. Um, I think maybe Twitch could work on, really focusing on that inclusiveness in their media, maybe around Pride Month or even not in Pride Month.
Yeah.
Um, but I just think personally, and like I'm not against trans people or the trans tag, but I think it's difficult for Twitch to separate the LGBTQIA plus tag because uh, it's also difficult because and I hate to have to say it, but this is the way the world is. But like, if you have a gay tag, let's say, versus an LGBTQIA, it turns more into the sexual content.
Hmm.
Like people will look specifically for gay because they want to find gay versus or lesbian or trans or you know
Yeah.
what I mean
Yeah.
because that's the same way that like porn websites work. Um,
Right. Like different
so
categories.
Yeah, so it's really tricky, I think, for Twitch to do it in a family friendly or whatever way
Right.
so that they don't get in trouble with like not allowing anyone above the age of 18 or 22 or whatever into the
Mm-hmm.
web. So it kind of limits who can come in and who can come, you know what I mean? So
Yeah, absolutely.
it's a very tricky discussion.
It is, and I want to make it clear that no one in this show would ever say that there's no need for a tag. We're kind of talking
No.
factually, like
Yeah.
from Twitch's perspective and from the information that has been given to us, or information that we've gathered from context, from conversation between partners and stuff like that. It's unfortunately the reality of Twitch. It's easier for Twitch to put out a drag tag because that's the kind of content. Like if I'm not doing drag, I'm not using the drag tag, and for them, they wanted to add something that had to do with content. So even if you're a drag artist, if you're not doing drag in that specific stream, you're not going to use the tag because
No.
they want that to be relevant to your content. And I do think that in the case of the LGBTQIA community, it is different because specifically the trans, I used to think that way too. Like I used to be like, there's no need for like, why do people want to get separated from the community? Like why do they want to have like their own thing? But the more that I've become educated on it, the more I realize that the trans community is so underrepresented, and it's
Yeah.
usually so buried within the LGBTQIA tag that they want a place where they can specifically look for the trans experience. Because when, as a gay person, it's easy for me to relate with anyone under the LGBTQIA umbrella, because depending like on the different degrees and the things that people have gone through, I will be able to relate somewhat to it. But the trans experience is very unique to trans people. And they won't relate to a gay person, unless the gay person happens to be trans as well. You know what I mean? So, unfortunately, I do wish that Twitch kind of had that thing where they were like, you know what, let's just give them the tag. In a different side, I don't know for a fact, but in my mind, I know that they don't want to do it because they don't want to be excluding anyone. So I think
Right.
at first they would be like, okay, let's do they did the same thing with the pride emotes. They started with like the gay, the lesbian, the trans emotes, and then people were like, where's the pansexual one? Where's the gender fluid one? Where's
And
this?
then they
Where's
made
that?
them.
And they ended up making them like a year or two later. But I think the point is, I feel like there is a part of their internal team that it panics at the idea of like releasing all of these tags and then forgetting something or not being fully aware of a different tag that needs
Right.
to be on that list, and then going on Twitter an hour later and seeing like Twitch is over party kind of thing. You know what I mean? So I do think that a subsection of the team probably has that worry. Um, I don't think that the tag would be like replacing the LGBTQIA tag, though. I think it would be a thing where, if I'm playing a game, I could have different tags that showcase that it's my first time playing it. A tag that says no spoilers, or I could have a tag that says spoilers are welcome, or that I allow backseat gaming, or
Hmm.
there's different things. Or I could have a tag that says it's my first time playing it, but I already know the story, so it's not a blind playthrough. So I feel like it could be just something that we could stack on top of different tags. We could do like LGBTQIA, we could do gay, we could do trans, we could do gender fluid, we could do asexual. All of those things, we could add them. Obviously, there's a limit of 5, so um, yeah, that's kind of. I think that there's not really much that we can add to it. Like we can only hope that they manage to do that. I feel like as a company, like if I was Twitch, I would be so annoyed at hearing the same complaint every single day that I would be like, you know what? Even if I don't get it, I'm just gonna give them the tag. You know what I mean? Like I happen to understand why they want the tag, but from like if I were to be like a cis straight white man in a suit working at Twitch, I would be like, I don't get it, but let's just give it to them because they've been like complaining about it for so long. I feel like that would be such an easy fix for this whole thing. But please
I mean,
don't.
if
Yeah.
everybody, I'm sure there's lots of other people that complain about like not having like really dumb tags.
Oh yeah, surely. Yeah, surely the Twitch the tag, I guess, team that works for Twitch probably hear a lot of interesting tags
Mhm.
suggestions. Um so yeah, please don't hate on the drag community though. Like it's not their fault that there's no, trans tag. They, fortunately for them, they won that battle, quote unquote, but there's still hope that the trans community will win theirs one day. And I know that we will be on that side of rooting for the trans tag to be on and for it to really come to fruition and for the community to get that validation and to get that recognition that they deserve,
Yeah.
or even if they don't want to have a tag, hopefully they come up with a different system, I guess, that they could put into place where people
Well,
can
maybe there will be
identify
like a
their
stamp
streams.
system.
Yeah, that could be great. Like some sort of like how we're able to change the color of our like outline when people scroll through Twitch. It would be really cool if there was a way for us to self-identify in that, have some sort of little badge or a print, like some sort of, ooh, that could be cute. Like instead of the like a solid like red outline, it could be like the trans flag colors.
Right.
That could
Yeah.
be cute. That could be a really easy way to identify someone in that community.
And like I hope what I said doesn't make me sound like I'm against the tag or against the trans community, because I'm not.
I mean, you're in the
Um,
community,
yeah.
I feel
So,
like,
but just being part of something doesn't mean that you're not against it.
that's true.
Unfortunately.
That's true.
Um,
No, but I think we made
maybe.
it clear that we were talking about like the Twitch side
Yeah.
of things, and we were like, well, I don't think it's gonna happen, and I think from Twitch's perspective, they're not gonna do it because of this or that. So I don't
Mhm.
think we weren't really sharing our opinion on that. We were more kind of talking about the realities of it and speculating in a way about why the tag isn't a thing on Twitch. But hopefully it will.
Maybe there's something we should be doing or trying to do as a community to open discussion.
Yeah.
Maybe like there have been streamers that did the um what was it called? This slut stream, slutathon? What I don't remember what it was called.
I I
But it
don't.
was basically like a sex positive discussion that a bunch of people had in a very large group of
Oh,
streamers.
okay. I must have
So
missed that. I
maybe something that we can do as a community is really open the discussion and like I know like we're all very much like on the attack of like we want this and we want it now,
right.
because it's important to them and it's important to us. Um, but I think there's a way to do it without annoying or attacking Twitch specifically, because I
Yeah.
think that out of all the social medias that I have and that I've seen, Twitch is probably one of the nicest and most accommodating for us and for other people, and inclusivity and all these things. Like, and they don't necessarily like use it for marketing,
Mm-hmm.
only marketing.
Right. Yeah. There's a percentage of marketing there, I'm sure, and there's a
Yeah, of course, but
but yeah, I know what you mean, because I think we get jaded by being on Twitch only, and then we don't realize that if you go on other platforms, other live streaming platforms, there's no such a thing as like even a way to identify that you're an LGBTQIA streamer. Like you have to put it in your title. There's no discoverability for the community. You have to literally, like the old days of Twitch, you would have to type in gay or LGBTQIA or the rainbow emoji or whatever it is, so that you can try to find a person that you can relate with. So
you
I,
had to
I
work to get that information.
honestly, yeah. And then sometimes things would show up if it would only show up if people were online. I think Twitch has changed since then. I feel like nowadays, even if it's a VOD, it will show up in the search results. But I feel like a couple years ago, like when you were talking about how you would look up drag queens and stuff like that, I
Mhm.
feel like back then, if you looked for a stream and they weren't live, they wouldn't show up in the results. So
No,
unless
like
they
not
had
even
it as their username, which I don't think anyone does. So yeah, I think Twitch comparatively does have the best track record when it comes to having, the Pride Month and different months that showcase talent that have to do with, February is coming up, Black History Month. They're gonna have that. I don't know any other platform that really does that. um so yes, it could be better. Yes, Twitch could do better, but I do think that if we're going to look at other platforms, and it's a big reason as to why I haven't moved platforms, it's because,
Mhm.
comparatively, Twitch is doing slightly better than anyone else, possibly because everyone else is not doing anything. But, at least Twitch is doing something, and we can only hope and bring that awareness so that they do more for us, as they
Yeah.
do with other communities. So hopefully that will be more of a
On
thing.
a on a trans positive note, some
Yes.
good. I've been seeing some good things um, for the trans community. Like for example, Blizzard, the Blizzard client, had Angel on the front thing. Like her stream
Yes.
was featured on the front, which is like, whoa, like a trans streamer on the front of something, like that's incredible to
Yeah, that's
me
amazing. On like the launcher, right?
for Blizzard, yeah,
That is,
for Overwatch.
yeah, that's amazing.
And that's big.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
like I think that, a lot of places are really putting the conscious effort. And like it wasn't even on Pride Month or anything. So
They just
there's an
randomly,
effort.
yeah.
There's little angels all over the place, working their ass off to try to get more visibility and more inclusivity.
Yeah.
So I think it's moving, and we need to accept these little victories.
Yeah, and keep on going because
Hmm.
I feel like for us and for other people that are usually, minorities or people who are not really, I guess, what the status quo is usually like. There's a daily fight every single day. We have to, if we get a victory, we have to not only celebrate it but like kind of prove ourselves that like you did the right choice. We have to prove to you that you've made the right choice by adding this feature or by doing this or by doing that. So um, let's keep at it. And I feel like a good way to continue is to not let the conversation die out, to keep a
Yeah.
constant conversation, even if it's not like, obviously, if you don't talk about it every single day, or if you're not as aggressive every single day, but don't let the conversation die out, because sometimes these corporations look at like us and they see a topic come up and they're like, oh, they're gonna forget about it in a week. You know what I mean? And sometimes it happens and they take advantage of that. So let's not stop talking about stuff like that. And same way as I don't feel like we should stop talking about the LGBTQIA tag and people that are not a part of the community using it. So that discussion was sparked big time last year because during Pride Month, people in the LGBTQIA community noticed that there was an uprise of streamers who were using the tag all of a sudden, and a lot of them didn't identify within the community. So the conversation popped up because people were like, wow, they're profiting off of us, they're not using the tag. If they really want to use the tag because they're an ally, why weren't they using it in May, and why aren't they going to be using it in July? You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
why is it only for June that happens to be Pride Month? So that conversation popped up, and there's people obviously on both sides of the spectrum, people saying that allies shouldn't be allowed to use the tag because they're not a part of the community. Sure, they're supporters. Sure, they may love us and they may help us fight for our rights and for the things that we deserve, but at the same time, they're not living our experiences on a daily basis. Um,
Right.
and the other side is, I feel like 90% of the LGBTQIA community where people are just like, can we just use the tag just for creators so that we can find each other? And because if I want to find a straight streamer, I have the front page for that. Click on any given streamer, throw a rock, you'll find a you'll find a straight streamer. You know what I mean? So I I do think it's important for the conversation to not die out. And Yeah, what do you think about this entire conversation? Because it feels so redundant to talk about it again. But how do you feel about it as you see it on social media?
I mean, my opinion about it is just like it's annoying because it's not something you can really report on.
Yeah.
Like, it's not really necessarily like something that you can viably show that is not true in a report. And like a lot of I've been hearing a lot that people think that the LGBTQIA, the A stands for ally, and it doesn't.
No, yeah. It
Um,
used to, but they corrected it. or
Well, and like just doing a little bit of research or really being informed or talking about it would have opened that information up.
yeah.
Um, of course, being in the LGBTQIA plus, we always want to be inclusive of other people because that's what it's about. Um,
Yeah.
but being an ally is recognizing that even though you're not a part of it, you can still support it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that goes for a lot of different communities. So sometimes, like I am not racist, and I think that um, white privilege is annoying, and um,
But
things like that, and like women's rights, and like, you know
uh-huh.
what I mean.
But
But
you're
like,
not
I'm not
like you're not
gonna.
gonna complain if you like you're not gonna apply for like the cookout stream team. You know what I mean? It's like we're not
Well, like, I'm not
racist, but we're not
gonna.
gonna join or enter their spaces. We're gonna be on the sidelines supporting them, kind of thing. You know?
Well, what I mean is like, I'm not gonna use the black tag or like
Right? Yeah.
Black Lives Matter tag. Like that's. I mean, it does matter, and like that was, that would be an interesting tag, but like it's not really my place to use that tag just because I support those people and I think they need to be showcased well in the media, and that's a whole other discussion that we've had
Oh yeah.
before. um but like it's similar to that. Like I just don't see the necessity to use it with like when you could just support it passively.
Yeah.
If you want to say that you have an inclusive and safe space type community, put it in your panels, put it in your title, safe space,
Yeah. In your
or
chat rules,
whatever.
whatever.
Um, and then act. You have to make sure that you act on it, because I have some friends that were discussing this with me, and they were saying, oh, I went to a stream and they had the LGBTQIA plus tag, and they weren't gay themselves, or they weren't LGBTQIA plus.
Mm-hmm.
And I entered the chat, and a discussion about that came up from me entering the chat or whatever, and nobody defended them. Like they were being attacked, being like, "You, a gay person," people were saying things like that, and they weren't being defended. And it's like, so you're obviously not an ally if you're not sticking your neck out to say, let's not make fun of people, or gay people are people too, or that sort of discussion.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of the thing too. Like you can create a safe space without I feel like wearing a badge, like okay, like cool, you're an ally. Like you know what I mean? It's kind of like why do you need to so badly to have a thing that like showcases how much of an ally you are?
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like if people wanted to have a badge that says like, "Oh, I'm a good person." Like, okay, that's the bare minimum, like sure it's great like don't be a bad person, don't be mean, don't be rude, whatever. But if you are, like why do you need that kind of like validation, that kind of voice to be like, hey, I'm an ally, I'm such a good person, I'm, like, and you can do that, but I don't think like I'm a very big proponent in that like you don't have to be a part of a community to support it.
Hmm.
So I am Caucasian, and as we were mentioning earlier, I stand up for people of color all the time when I see them being disrespected on social media,
Yes.
when I see that they're being misrepresented, when I see there's injustices happening.
Hmm.
I give them a voice. I retweet them. I put their message out there. I don't speak over them. I try to just amplify what they're saying. And that's kind of the same thing with the LGBTQIA tag discussion, is that sometimes people they almost prefer to have a seat at the same table as us rather than just be the person on the side taking care of everything or making sure that everything is okay. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like they want they want to take and be in our space at the same time. And it's unfortunately because you see people within the community kind of bad mouthing the entire experience, and they're saying that we're not being inclusive by not having straight people, like by saying that straight people shouldn't be in the tag or whatever, and then that leads into an audience that, and I'm not taking this out of my ass. I literally, it's things that I've seen on social media, and I've seen people in the community saying stuff like that, and I've seen the comment sections, and I've seen people say stuff like, yeah, that's why like the LGBTQIA community is so ungrateful. Just accept my support in whatever way I want to show it. Like, why do you need to, like, why are you so picky about like any support that you get? Kind of with that mentality of like any support is good support kind of thing.
Well,
um
support is an action, not just a badge of honor.
exactly. Like, how are you gonna claim to be an LGBTQIA ally and then turn your back to say like you're so ungrateful because I want to show that I am an ally and I can't because you want to be selfish and keep the tag to yourselves? Like, no, like the tag is ours. The thing is, like, y'all just prefer to be louder than us. Y'all prefer to take our space, and then people come into your stream, and a lot of the times it is that situation where they're like, oh, me? No, girl, I'm not gay. Or me? No, I'm not in the community. Of course not, kind of thing. As if like, oh, but you're taking our space. Like, it's,
Yeah.
you know. And the thing
It's the
that,
same way that we have like straight actors who play gay parts.
right,
And then they do such a poor job. And it's like, well, someone who actually has that experience might have known how to do that better.
right. Or even like in interviews to talk about the issues that are portrayed in the
Yes.
movies. Like when they're doing press, like, sure, you can be a great actor and pass as a gay person, but if you're doing press about the movie and then you're kind of like laughing about the fact that you had to kiss a man, or you're kind of like, oh, it was so hard for me to portray a gay character, it's like, okay, who cares, you know what I mean? Like, you took that role because you supposedly wanted to tell our story,
Yeah.
but then
And it
you're,
was they took the responsibility to tell that story.
exactly, exactly. And what bothers me is that in the community already, like, we have this thing in the back of our minds where we enter a stream, and if we see someone who seems like a cis straight white woman, we just assume, oh, she's not in the community, you know? Like, sometimes
Mhm.
that's just something that sometimes is programmed in the back of our minds. And then you realize, oh, they're actually bi, or they're asexual, or because there's certain subsects, no, what? Yep. There's certain, I guess, letters in the LGBTQIA community that aren't as obvious, you know? Like, if you see like a cis male on stream, and you see them talking about their significant other who happens to be a cis woman, you're going to be like, that person isn't in the community. What are they doing? They're not gay, therefore they're not in the community. But no, they can totally be bi. They could be asexual, they could be trans, they could be literally any letter in the community, but we already, within the community, we already kind of dismiss certain parts of our own community, and
Yeah.
and then to go into a stream and then having to look in the panels to see if they say anything about their identity, or waiting until they say something, like maybe if they're in a relationship, or like trying to catch hints to see if they're actually in the community, sucks. Like, you want to assume that if someone is using that tag, they're automatically one of us. You're probably gonna be like, okay, they're probably like, okay, they're in a relationship with someone of the opposite gender, they're probably in the community anyway, and you don't really think of it. But because our current climate on Twitch allows for allies to use the tag, there's always going to be that. And it's annoying as well when you're streaming and someone comes into your chat and they're like, are you actually gay? Because some people see that as hate, some people see that as like, oh, it's a troll coming for me. But honestly,
Yeah.
after this entire discussion, and because of allies being allowed in, I can totally understand why someone would be like, are you actually one of us? Like, I've probably, like, that person probably has been burned so many times, like being in quote unquote safe spaces that aren't really, they allow homophobic language, they allow transphobia to be there. They allow by erasure to happen in their chat and stuff like that. They're not educated about the topics. Most of the times, I can tell you that a straight person using the LGBTQIA is not quote unquote qualified to use it. And what I mean by that is like, I'm a member of the community and Chalora is a member of the community. And even we have moments where sometimes people ask us about certain identities that we're not super familiar with, or people ask us about certain topics or certain conversations within the community. And sometimes we feel like, oh, I'm not educated enough to talk about this. I need to do my research and I am in the community. So you can only imagine how much less educated someone outside of the community is, no matter how much they support us or not. So it's definitely something to keep in mind. And a different thing that bothers me about that as well is like, if you're such an ally to us and we say, or most of the community says that we would prefer if you didn't use it, why wouldn't you listen to us? You know what I mean? Like, it's
same with like what I was saying before. Like if somebody said, don't talk about POC because you're not one of them, or don't, or maybe say this instead when you're talking about them, or whatever, I would just be like, yeah, totally, like, yeah, tell me, because I want to help, I want to be better, I want to support you. I don't really see how a constructive criticism is seen with such resistance. And some people were saying that straight people can't use it or allies can't use it is gatekeeping.
right.
I think. And for that, there's a difference between saying nobody can use it and saying that people are using it improperly.
Yeah.
Like honestly, if nothing ever bad happened with the allies that use the tag, it never would have probably been brought up.
Honestly,
But
yeah.
because it's consistently used by people who don't belong or who aren't in the community, not that they don't belong, they're not part of the community, or they aren't in the community, and they say that they're allies, or they're not even allies, it's inappropriate.
Yeah.
Especially when they don't back up or have any sort of actual support. And it's one thing to support something passively, but I don't think passively is the same as an ally.
Right.
But maybe they'll make a tag for ally. Who knows?
Honestly, I remember last year having this discussion, and I was like, you know what? Just give them the tag. Like, if they really need one, just give them the tag so that they don't use the LGBTQIA one. Like, in a way, I was like, to me, it's silly to use a tag. It's almost like if they came up with a non-racist tag. That's, you know, everybody should, nobody should be racist on Twitch anyway.
Racism is bannable offense.
Yeah, just like homophobia and transphobia. Yet people are like no, people have that thing of like, for a fact that isn't the default. It's like, well, maybe it should be the default. Maybe we could work, like, maybe you should check on your straight friends and see if they're doing that, and that's an amazing way of like portraying allyship, is checking your friends. Like, I'm white. If I hear my like a white friend say something racist or something questionable about race or about, immigrants or about anything non-white, I would speak up and be like, hey, don't say that. Like, that's rude, or that's racist, or that's inappropriate. Yeah, like, let me give you a piece of education. Here's a thread that a friend of mine made that is really important and really thoughtful about this experience, about their experience, I should say. So, being an ally is more than just, like you said, Chalora. It's more about like that badge of honor of like, yeah, I'm an ally, but like, prove it. Like, even that, like, I don't want people to be proving themselves.
all the true allies that I know don't wear badges. They don't need them.
Exactly.
Like, if I support this or that, I don't need a badge, because I don't want, like, it's not about pride. It's not about honor. it's about respect for other human beings. It's about inclusivity. It's about equality. It's about, just being a decent human being. Um,
And not needing
and
like a reward for being a decent
I don't need a
person.
reward for that.
Yeah.
The reward is that other people live better lives,
Yeah.
and I don't need anything for that.
Exactly. Like, I don't need a pat on the back to be like, good job, Ruby. No, like, if anything, like, I know that I can sleep at night knowing that I defended people who needed to be defended or uplifted or um,
Included.
amplified or included. Exactly. To me, it's it's such a non-issue, but sometimes people love to make issues out of things that aren't that important. And to kind of finish this conversation, there's also the element of queer baiting. And people
Yeah.
who don't understand queer baiting, it's basically when this used to be, I don't know if it still is, honestly, but this kind of got started in older TV shows and then YouTube and stuff like that, where in TV, for example, they would tease that, or movies, they would tease that there's like a romantic interest of the same sex, but they would never follow through. But they would lead on the queer people watching by, teasing it every week if it's a TV show, or in the trailers if it's a movie, and then people would watch the movie or show, and then they would feel betrayed. They would feel baited. They would feel like, wow, they wanted the queer audience, but they never actually followed through. Or in a lot of cases, in I feel like it still happens in media where they end up killing the gay character or they end up killing the trans character, and they tease the show by being like, oh, we have people of, all races, all genders, all sexualities, but then we end up getting the bad, we end up getting the shit end of the stick kind of thing. Like,
Yeah.
we don't get represented properly or whatever. And that translates into Twitch because I've seen it. Nobody can tell me otherwise. I'm not coming up with this. I've seen people do a thing where you go into their stream, they have the tag, they are very ambiguous about the way that they talk about their interests sexually. They have emotes that include like rainbows, they include LGBTQIA slang. So naturally, you assume they're one of you. Like, you assume, oh, this person is like me. Like, you see a title with, you know, drag race slang, and you see the person using the tag, and you see a rainbow emote, you're gonna be like, oh, this person is like me. This person is an ally, and then not an ally. The person is a member of the community,
Yeah.
and then you learn like the conversation needs to take a certain place or a certain turn for the person to actually mention their sexuality or mention that they're not a member of the community. But by then, you've been probably subbed for a while. You've probably been in the chat. You've given them a view, like higher viewership. You've been giving them engagement. You follow them on social media. You've given them all of this, and then you end up feeling again baited because that person wasn't actually a part of the community, and they led you on to think that they were. And it still happens. There's literally people that sometimes they need a DM and from the fellow queers on Twitch to be like, hey, that person isn't actually one of us. Like, you think that you're supporting one of us, but that person isn't. And a lot of times the people end up being like, what? Like, what do you mean? That person, like, I totally assumed because of the way that they presented themselves. So it's also, to me, it's also a way to prevent that from happening because, and I was asking people privately, do you think if an ally tag came, do you think people that do this would stop doing it and they would just use the ally tag? And, what do you think?
I don't know
Right?
because it's difficult to say because like you can kind of start to see where people want to use the LGBTQ play a QIA plus tag for personal gain,
Right.
or if they actually identify as an ally. But then I also know for myself, if there was an ally tag, I probably would never go to it
Right.
because I'm looking to support the actual LGBTQ. Not that I don't support allies, but like on my tier list of people to visit,
You would look for
like
LGBTQIA, you would look for
yeah.
drag, you would look for things that interest you or things that you identify with and not like an ally. Like, sure, you're welcome in my community, but yeah,
So I don't know. It's complicated,
it
and
is.
um, yeah, I just don't think that people would use the new tag. They'd
Hmm.
still probably end up using the original, so it doesn't solve the problem.
Yeah, I don't think it would either. I think they would use it anyway, and then we would have in our search, we would have to specify other tags. But I am very curious if they made it so that whenever you selected LGBTQIA, there was some sort of drop down button where you had to select something. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like you had to select like gay or trans or bi or questioning, because that's also the Q in the LGBTQIA is not just for queer or queer or gender queer or anything queer related. It's also for questioning people who are not
Right.
sure of their sexualities. I wonder how how I almost said that person as if there's not as if there's only one person who does it. But I wonder how people like that would, like, what they would do. Would they select gay? Would they select anything in the community to further their baiting? Like I'm very curious, like if that ever took place, what
Well,
they
I
would
feel like
do.
it would be interesting to see, especially just because, like, that's actually a really interesting idea, what you just said. Because let's say that they broadened LGBTQIA plus to where you could like multiple choice your identifiers.
Yeah, you could select something from sexuality, something from gender,
Right.
and yeah.
Do you think that that would be an option that might be good for like a solution for the trans tag discussion?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because then you're specifically identifying with one that's which is kind of like what they wanted.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that would be cute. Sorry, I know this is like totally not the question.
No, you're
Um,
fine.
but I think it would be interesting to see because I feel like if you went to a stream and you saw that people were using gay, lesbian, and like things that don't really like
Right.
go together, you'd be like,
You're not all
I
of the
see
letters.
you're not all these letters. Like, what are you doing over here?
Exactly.
And I feel like in a way that could be helpful in reporting and like maybe preventing people from using that tag.
Mhm.
So that's a really interesting idea.
Yeah, I would love for that, because in that way, you know how when you select a specific game in a category, it would automatically put you in the category of like role playing or action adventure or whatever. Like there's some games that automatically have that association. So I wonder if Twitch, if you're listening, I wonder if there would be a way for you to use the LGBTQIA tag and then for it to automatically, even if you had to do it in your settings, you know what I mean? And they would be like, okay, when you use the LGBTQIA tag, what tags do you want to automatically be like associated with it? And then you, in your settings, you
Yeah.
would be able to select the ones that would obviously identify with you. And then that could be like an automatic thing. And then people, if you were looking for it, you would be able to use that specific filter like people do
Mhm.
with the role playing games or with the action or fighting games that automatically happen. Like if you play a fighting game, most likely you don't have to select the fighting game tag because it would automatically be associated with it. Um, so that's a good idea, Twitch. That's a good idea. Take that, please. You can take it for
Well,
free.
it could even be, we could work on pronoun tags or maybe pronoun. Uh,
Badges
I
or.
think that this badge idea would be cute. I know that there's already like a million things on Twitch. There's sub badges, bit badges, blah 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
But like the one I'm talking about is like it would go in your title or it would go next, like instead of like a verified.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
could
yeah.
like when you go to someone's channel, it says
Mm-hmm.
like Project P, and then there's like a check mark, and then
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, but,
Well, you can't
well,
see a
not
check mark. I can't relate, but
they're just hiding it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Of course, of course.
but like, of course, there's the verified, so you could continue with that and have
Yeah.
another badge, maybe a he him or you know, all those types of
Or
things. I
like the
mean, for me,
bathroom symbol, like like the little
yeah, but
circles, and then like with Pokemon, they have that little thing on the
yeah,
side that tells you like if the Pokemon
you
is
could,
male, female, or I guess
yeah.
Pokemon don't have other, but you know.
Well, that's like I guess you could use the heart emoticons that they have already with the
Yeah.
different identifiers, so like gay, non-binary, pansexual, yada yada yada.
Literally use the
Um,
emotes. Yeah, that's so true. Use the pride
but like
emotes.
transfer them into little badges. I think that would be
A
nice
little
to,
flag. It would be so
yeah.
cute.
Um, I mean, it would be difficult because I think you could only choose one because you couldn't just have like your name and then like seven badges.
I guess for pronouns, if we're gonna keep it pronoun related, I think it
Yeah.
would be very like. Well, I guess some people go with various.
Well, I go with them all, so it's
Yeah,
kind of difficult.
yeah. I was like,
Um,
yeah, you go with he, him, they, them. So like,
and she, her.
oh, I was talking like about myself. I
Oh,
was like,
sorry.
yeah, I was like, I go with those. So like maybe like no, you don't just go with one or the other. So,
Mhm. But I
yeah,
mean, the maximum would be
I
three things.
guess, yeah,
Um, but it could just be, like you said, like the masculine, feminine, and then you could even have like a mixed gender symbol. I'm sure there is one.
yeah. I think
Um,
that they have like the circle, and then they have you know how I think it's the male one. They have an arrow pointing up, and then the female one has
there's like a
it pointing
plus
down.
symbol.
And then
Yeah,
I feel there's the mixture of it, which is like it's
yeah.
pointing both
You could
ways.
just mix them together, which I'm sure
Yeah.
there's another symbol out there for it.
Yeah,
But
surely. We're just talking on the
yeah,
spot. So surely
I'm
there's a
sure
better
that,
way to go about it.
yeah. But that would take research, and I don't think it would be too difficult to implement. And I think that would be kind of nice because I think that Twitter, anyway, is already on that page. Well, I mean, Twitter people, not Twitter itself,
Yeah.
is on the page of like, let's be inclusive and like, show our support by having our pronouns available. Even if we're an ally, we have our pronouns available on the little profile.
And I think it should be mandatory. You know what I mean? So that it normalizes it, so that if you had the pronoun symbol or whatever, it people wouldn't be like clocking you for oh you're trans because you have the he him pronouns. Like no,
Right.
like
I mean,
let's
I feel like
normalize pronouns as a
I
whole.
feel like for some people they wouldn't want, like for some people in the community. I mean, they just maybe like someone who's just starting their transition or starting thinking about gender identity, they might not want any at all, you
Right.
know? And of course, people who are completely against the community would not want any at all. Um, so I think it's fine optional.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think it would be a nice customizer that would
Yeah.
really show that Twitch cares about that sort of identifier.
Absolutely, and to normalize it on, I think it would be such a huge message to everyone to have the biggest live streaming platform to take a stance on it and say like, "Hey, we allow you to showcase your pronouns." That would be such a big deal, I feel. So,
Yeah, kind of like what Sly's thing, like LGBTQIA plus, and then there'd be like a little slash or something that
yeah,
was gay.
that would be
Or
cute.
yeah, I mean, the tag would end up being really long, but
Yeah, who cares?
um, but I mean, like I feel like if you put the LG like the multiple choice, it would still just be the LGBTQIA plus tag, and then it would have like a little thing underneath or whatever, and it would just have all the things that you posted. So like
Yeah.
gay, non-binary, or you know, uh, lesbian, trans, or
Mm-hmm.
who knows?
Any
Whatever.
combination of all the
Any
letters.
combination.
Yeah.
Obviously, like some don't match together.
Yeah.
But
Exactly. But yeah. No, I think that would be really I think that would be really cool. Um
mhm.
and if people really needed one, I guess we could even fit like an ally one. But yeah, if people really made a big deal about that, at least you would know. But yeah, it is what it
Yeah,
is.
I think that would be a good compromise anyway, to just have
Yeah,
LGBTQIA plus ally
yeah, just
or friend or something.
anything.
Because I know
Yeah,
I feel like if I was agender or asexual, I might not want ally taking the place of the A again.
yeah.
So maybe friend would be better or something.
Ooh, you know what would be cute if they found a way for to like make it bold. Like if you like instead of adding another tag, you could make one of the letters a different color. So like I would be able to make the G like purple or something,
Right,
so people would
yeah.
know that that I mean, obviously
That's
that
your
wouldn't be
identity.
a solution to everything because obviously not all the identities within the LGBTQIA plus tag are represented in that little
Right. That's
um
what the plus.
yeah, that's what the plus is for because we can't fit all the letters in it. um Even a safe space, tag, like a safe space tag I think would be fine. It wouldn't have to do necessarily just with being an ally to the LGBTQIA community, just a safe space generally for anyone. Um, but yeah, enough of that. Oh,
Sorry. Fucking nails, man.
oh,
Uh,
they look pretty, but they're not the most
no,
they're
they're
not the
not.
most useful, practical,
Not
I guess.
functional.
um, on a different note, we are going to be talking a little bit about the Grammys.
Oh.
So,
Like my grandma?
not quite.
Oh.
The Grammy Awards, the Academy Awards, I guess, for music. So the Recording Academy, I guess, if you want to get formal with it. Basically, it was breaking news when we were doing Breakfast at Ruby's last week. There were a ton of allegations against the now ex Grammy boss. He has since within a week he has stepped down from being the CEO of the
Okay.
Recording Academy because he got accused of raping a female artist, and a ton of different things that came about, like sexual harassment, voting, like people messing with the voting, and just a ton of different things that were spoken about literally days before the Grammys took place. And so everything, I guess, is being taken into court. A notable thing that came out of all the allegations was that allegedly they have a secret committee amongst the academy. So basically, I think uh, anyone in the music industry can sign up to be a part of the academy. So like if you're a music critic, if you're a producer, if you're an artist, like you can be a part of it. I'm not sure like what kind of you know what kind of thing, like what not there's probably certain things that you have to, certain attributes that you have to yourself in order to be able
Yeah.
to apply to be a part of the academy, to vote for all these things. But basically there's an academy that votes for all the different categories, and then there's like a secret committee that like literally nobody knows who they are because they don't want like specific record companies to go after them or pay them or whatever. But it's been alleged that it's been, I guess, leaked in a way that some of those board members in those secret committees are like managers of certain artists, are like significant others of artists, or are a part
Okay.
of those like record companies of those artists. So that has led to certain songs. For example, they have a ranking system, and then I guess like I don't know how many songs end up being nominated for a Grammy, but let's say if 5 songs have to get nominated, everybody in the Academy has a thing where they rank every song in order, and then they do an average system, I guess. And there was apparently a song in the Song of the Year category. There was an artist that initially ranked 18 out of 20 in that average, and they ended up, I don't know if they ended up winning or they ended up just being nominated in general for the category, which people were like, wait, what? Like, people already kind of assume with award shows that people always have this mindset of like, oh, they're rigged, or people paid to win certain awards, or this or that. But to have an alleged confirmation is really interesting,
Hmm.
especially days before the show. And there's been a list. I don't know. I don't have a list, but the person that came out with all of these allegations, they leaked a list of artists that got snubbed in previous years, like on purpose, and that included Beyonce. People already speculated about it, but that list included Beyonce. I think it included Taylor Swift, and it included um, Ariana, and even like Ed Sheeran and other artists. Um,
Right.
so I can't tell you for sure if all of those artists were in that list, but a lot of prominent figures in music were a part of that list. And the Grammys do have a history of snubbing people of color as well. Like they, with Beyonce, I think she only won once in a category that didn't have to do with R&B or rap. And she's been nominated for like Song of the Year, Album of the Year, but she never wins, or she rarely wins outside of the categories that, they deem more appropriate for her, which unfortunately, because she's a black woman, end up falling in the R&B category, urban, all of the above. um
Right.
so what do you think about this kind of confirmation, in a way, allegedly? I don't want to get sued, um, of all of these things, especially with the Grammys, because a lot of people consider them the end all be all when it comes to music.
I feel like we kind of discussed similar distaste or distrust with like these academies.
Right.
Talked about what we talked about the movies, the Oscars, was it?
Yeah, it was the Oscars. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and like again, like it's who are these people? Like,
Right.
do we vote them in? Are they like what part of the music industry do they come from? What are their uh credentials? What's their resume look like?
Right.
Do we know that they vote non-biased?
Yeah.
Do they consider small artists? Do they only like one genre of music? Maybe we should be looking at having an academy that specifically targets, like they'll have groups that specifically target different genres.
Yeah.
Uh, and that way the awards are based on genre and the people that vote on them are from that genre. Um, Not just a bunch of random people who happen to be Joe Schmo over there and a producer
Right.
over here. It's kind of irritating to know. Like, it's like if we had like a Twitch Awards or something, which we
Mm-hmm.
probably do, the streamies or whatever. Like, I'm sure there's lots of people that have, their, what's it called? Like a hand in a pocket.
I guess.
I think that's what it's called. I don't know the term exactly, but like basically they're in it for the money,
Mm.
or they've got like a little cheat sheet of
Yeah.
people that they're going to support. Like if, for example, we did the streamies, and I had to choose who had the most growth, uh, I let me show me the list of people that had the most like numbers of growth in on Twitch. Give me the top 100. I'll go and watch all of them. I'll check them all out.
Yeah.
Who represents that the most?
Mm-hmm.
I don't even have to talk to them because I feel like maybe talking with them would kind of, you're like, oh hi, I'm this person. I'm here to
Right.
see how much growth you've done, and they're like, well, look.
Right.
Um, And you can look at their Discords, you can look at their YouTube channel, their Twitter, their Instagram, and all these things kind of culminate together to create a creator based on whatever the criteria is. Obviously, not growth, but like who created the best music or who created, especially when it comes to art, is so difficult to critique. Um, so I don't know. It's not the easiest job, but I think that it's annoying when it's about money.
Yeah.
Who's going to sell the most albums? Like, I don't care about that. I want to know who worked the hardest and who had the best music.
Right.
Um,
And sometimes
which
even
is
with that, people are like, "Wait, but that was the best-selling album, and you're telling me that the best-selling album and the album that had the most cultural impact didn't win?" You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah,
well, like what? It's weird. And it's funny that you mentioned that like for specific niche categories, I guess for the lack of a better word, because one of the allegations was actually that certain artists guarantee a win in certain categories if they're more well known. So basically, if you get, like, if the Academy sees Beyonce's name in, like, a, let's say, soundtrack nomination,
right.
they're likely, according to the reports, this is not my words, allegedly, they will look at a name like Beyonce and they will give her the award without listening to any of the nominees. Um,
So none of these people are really working.
yeah, or at least a percentage, or at least, I guess, the secret committees and stuff like that, which is a whole other thing. Like, if you have an academy, why do you need a secret meeting within that to do the end
Right.
results or to do like the finalizing of the categories or whatever? Like, why do we need another thing? And not knowing it makes it worse because you're like, who are these people? This could be so and so's manager, and they're in there and they're looking for the best interest in their artists, you know? Um, people I didn't watch the Grammys because I
I
wasn't
didn't
about
either.
to stay up super late for my
We
time
need passion
zone.
pet.
Right. She would she probably watched, or at least clips, but I did watch clips of performances. Some of them didn't get uploaded in like official channels. Like, I know Lizzo's performance, the Grammys YouTube channel posted like a 40-second clip, but the full performance isn't available outside of the US. So, and she didn't post it on her YouTube account. So I'm like, Lizzo, I wanted to see your performance. People said good things about it. Um, I did, one thing that really popped out to me was Little Nas X,
Right.
his outfit, the
It was cute.
pink, the little like S&M pink like straps, I guess you would say. Um, Everything was so adorable about it. I think he's a cutie patootie, and I loved seeing,
He's
like,
really handsome.
every right. And every time he goes into those red carpets, he's always like pure
On point.
camp. He's like fully there. He's not like pandering. He's just fully being himself, like wearing the loudest colors, being the best version of himself. And I love seeing that. And that kind of translated into his performance because he had people basically with his huge song that he had, Old Town Road, whatever the song is called. Um,
Right.
he had a ton of different remixes that, and he had a lot of the people that participated in those remixes on stage. So he had BTS, he had that guy, that kid, the yodeling kid. He had him a part of it. He had
Oh my gosh.
he had so many people a part of that stage. Obviously, he had Billy Ray Cyrus, who was in the original version. So that performance was really fun. It was really fun to see Ariana put an end to her current era. So she's been promoting Thank You Next. She's been promoting the Sweetener album, and this was kind of like the the final chapter of that kind of era, and she's moving forward now with like new music and stuff. So her performance was also really fun, really good. Um, so those were a couple of things that stood out to me. Award wise, I thought it was really funny. Did you see that clip with Billie Eilish, where she was like, they were showing the nominees, and she was
I
like,
didn't
"Please,
watch it, but
please
I
let it
heard
not be
about it.
me." I saw on social media people were sharing that clip. She was like mouthing like, "Please let it not be me," like for album of the year, and I thought that was funny. And she even like when she won, she said, "I thought Ariana deserved it, whatever." So I always think that's cute, and you saw the back and forth between the two of them in that clip, and
I
I love that.
sometimes I feel like when we see things like that, like I know for me, like let's say I got nominated for something like best drag of the year or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'd be happy to accept the award, but if I genuinely thought that somebody else deserved it, I would definitely just be like, no. No, I'm giving it to someone else, and that's it.
Could
That's
you
the end of the discussion.
imagine someone like turning down the award? They're like, "No, sorry,
No,
no,
sorry, not
I'm
true.
not standing up," or like
Well,
not show up.
you could definitely go up, accept it, and say, no, I disagree completely. Because this and this, I'm not being humble, but it definitely belongs to this person. I have definitely been watching them closely, blah blah blah.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like
Uh,
there's a way that they could do that. That
mhm.
would be fierce if someone, and I feel like she did it to a certain degree. I saw a little bit like of a couple clips of her receiving her awards, and it was always like thanks, and then she left, or she was like when it came to, I think it was album of the year or song of the year, the one that she won over Ariana, and she said that she deserved, Ariana deserved it, and she was like, "I'm not gonna waste your time, just thank you, whatever," and then she left. Like she didn't really make a speech being like, "Oh, I'm so thankful," or "I deserved it," or "I worked so hard for it." She was
Right.
like, "No." She basically said no without saying that. She was like, "Cool, thanks, bye."
Well, and like I think we talked about it last time, but like these academies are so outdated.
mm,
Like I feel like the artists themselves know that too, and they're just kind of like there for the event of it all sort of thing. It's like I feel like everybody knows it's hogwash, it's rigged.
right.
It's just for the performance of it all, the pleasantry. And like I said, like I feel like we need to work on or find some way of changing how that works. Like um, there should be a new academy that gets made and they call it something else, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And they have an award show for that. And um, obviously if it would only work if you got the right people to
Right.
make it all happen. If you had the right kind of judges and the right kind of critiquing and the right,
Mm-hmm.
um, but to just completely 180 and like throw the other academies under the bus and say like, well, the reason everybody's watching ours is because it's genuine. The reason nobody's watching yours anymore is because it's all fake. It's a hog. It's nothing.
Yeah. And they had a
Didn't
huge
Beyonce
dip
go
in
late?
sorry, what?
Didn't Beyonce or something? She's like they said that she went to the awards really late.
Oh, I don't think she showed up at all. I think she went to like there was an event the day before
Right.
where I think Diddy spoke in that event, and he talked about a lot of the injustices about the Grammys and stuff like that. And people were saying that she literally flew all the way there just to go to that event and not attend the Grammys or something like that. I don't know. I didn't watch the Grammys, so I can't confirm nor deny
Right.
if she actually attended. But I did
But I
hear
feel like
something
there's
like that.
like I feel like that's a statement in itself
Yeah.
because there's some obvious like rigging going on or obviously there's kind of weird something going on there.
Yeah. And I saw a thing on Twitter. They were congratulating Lizzo because she won an award that she was the third person of color to win that award. And the Grammys have been going on for like decades. So to think that Lizzo is only the third person of color to ever win I think it was possibly, don't quote me on this, I think it was like Song of the Year. And she was
Right.
only the third person of color to win that. She won basically an award that wasn't within the R&B, within like the rap part that people in the academy would put her in because she's black. So it was a really huge victory and everybody was applauding it. Everybody was like, "Get it, Lizzo, you deserve it. You're like a legend. You're, you know." And I saw a tweet as well, and it was a really good tweet where the original poster posted a picture of like the Grammys from the early 2010s, where it was like the winners included Kesha, Nicki, Gaga, Katie, whatever. And then they included a picture of like this year, which was like Billy, it was Little Nas X, it was Ariana and Lizzo, like, and they were like, ugh, where has like pop music gone to? And people like jumped on it being like, oh, can't you literally see like the diversity? Like it evolved. Like you see a black plus sized woman on the Grammy stage, owning her body, owning like her music, and slaying the industry that has so many standards that go against just her existence. Um, you have people who are making political statements with their music. You have people who are, you know, Ariana last year, she stepped out of the like Grammys. She was like, I'm not gonna perform. You guys wanna censor me. You guys wanna, you know, do all of this bullshit. I'm not gonna be a part of it. Um,
Right.
so it's really important for artists, and I really love when an artist reaches a place where they're so established that they can skip the Grammys. I think that's such a boss move. Like Taylor did that. I think she was nominated for stuff and she was like, nope, not gonna
No,
be
I'm
there.
good.
Yeah.
Well, and like, um, didn't. So I don't know what the award was for, or like, I don't. I'm not gonna pretend I know everything about music, but um, Billie Eilish had like one hit song this
Right.
year, and Ariana had like more than
Several.
five. More
Yeah.
than five. So I don't know what the award was for specifically, but like, I'm a little confused.
I don't think Ariana won any awards, and that's what people were mad about. I
Really?
don't think I think she was nominated for like five, and she didn't
Which
win anything.
that surprises me because she's been kind of booming this year.
She's such a culturally relevant artist. Like every time she does something, it breaks the internet. Like with Seven Rings, with Thank You Next, with literally anything that she did last year. How did she basically release two whole albums and then nothing
Nothing.
gets recognized? She did a medley on stage about with like three songs that she did, and everybody recognized the songs. Everybody was cheering. Everybody was like getting their life off of her performance. And then it's like, you're not gonna recognize that. People thought it was really weird. Ariana was very humble about it, and I loved
Oh
seeing
yeah.
the interactions backstage. I loved seeing little clips and pictures here and there of her living for a little Nas X, or him waiting for her at the sidelines while she was at the red carpet, and them
Oh,
complimenting each other, and all of them like hugging each other. I was talking a little bit about it yesterday in my stream, just casually, and I love how our artists nowadays are more like supportive of one another, and they kind of know that the industry itself is kind of a shit show at times. So for them to be like, oh, we in this together, we get it, we're this is bullshit, but we love each other and we're not gonna fuel these feuds and stuff that sometimes the industry would feel with like Katie and Gaga and Kesha and Nicki and Mariah and all that stuff. I love that we're reaching a point where the future of music, like these people are in like Billie is literally Billie Eilish is like 18, and I love
yeah.
that. And Little Nas X and Ariana are around my age. They're in their like mid to late 20s. So I love that the like
Is Lil
some
Nas like 19?
oh I didn't know.
I think he only recently became like of legal age.
Really?
Yeah, because I think there
I
was a
wasn't aware.
discussion about like over sexualizing him when he like was very
Oh,
young.
got it. I think
Hmm.
that discussion also, I heard that conversation with Billie Eilish because she very recently turned 18 and people were like, they had countdowns for her, like, oh, she's finally legal. But, like, girl,
Oh,
you're
gross.
sexualizing her based on the photos that she took before she was legal. So, you know, that's, like, weird and, like, gross and, like,
Well, just also like I
waiting
don't
for
know
someone to be
why.
legal. That's so weird.
The point. It's like what a waste of time. Like it's like kind of creepy to think like
It is.
it's almost like the medieval thing of like waiting for a it was I think it was called like waiting for a girl to flower.
Oh,
So because of like all the whole like arranged marriage thing and stuff,
right.
like girls would get married to people
Yeah.
and uh, they would wait for her to flower so that she could start producing children or heirs,
That is,
uh,
ugh.
which is gross.
I hate that we're still there's still like a thing like nowadays of
Yeah,
people
so
who are
it's just
like,
kind of like, can we just like let people be people and like if they happen
please,
to have a sex life, good for them. If they don't, who
right,
cares? Like, I mean, of course, be sex positive, but like we don't need to like, it's almost like waiting on people to release their nudes.
right,
Like, let people be people. If they want to release their nudes, they will. We don't need to pressure anybody into doing anything. We don't need to wait around for, someone to lose their bra or something, or go to the shop, go to Walmart wearing no bra, but like you can see their nipples through a shirt or something.
yeah.
Like, fuck off.
And with Billie Eilish, not that it would make it any better if she was more of a sexual human, like if her content was more sexual, if her music was more
Yeah.
sexual, it wouldn't make it better. But for her, like, you have to work really hard to like sexualize her because she's just someone who wears like baggy t-shirts. She's literally like a teenager. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
she wears like she wears clothes that a normal teenager would wear. It's not like she's putting a sexual persona out there. Not that it would make it any better, but I'm just saying like they have to work really hard in order to be gross towards her. You know what I mean? They like pick and choose like little things where she's like bending over or there's like a little like a slight thing of cleavage and I'm like that's so weird. Like why are people like this? Like don't do
They're trying
this.
to get like anything they can.
Ugh, it's so gross. But yeah, that's kind of our little uninformed, in a way, Grammy recap because we couldn't be bothered to watch it. But you know, we're talking about the general themes in it, and we're talking about the general discussion in the entire situation. Um, but let's end off with a amazing piece of news. So Mattel has released the company behind Barbie. If for people who don't know, they are releasing a new line of dolls that include people with like prosthetic limbs, people with alopecia, people with different skin conditions, people with different like they're including male dolls with like long hair, quote unquote female dolls with like no hair or short hair, like basically redefining or normalizing in a way different people who aren't, you know, the blonde girl with blue eyes. You know, I love that they're taking a stance and they're showing that there's beauty in a lot of different people and all of us are so different but so beautiful. And for like children to walk on an aisle of toys and to see themselves in there, like see a doll in a wheelchair or see a doll with a prosthetic arm or leg, like I obviously can't relate, but I get my heart gets like warm like imagining a kid like that being like I can finally like relate to it, or thinking about like even an adult, like someone our age, to be like, wow, kids these days are going to have that representation that I didn't have and
Right.
I get to be here to witness that. um it's such a cool thing and I'm so happy that they're doing it. And I think they have been doing it. You know, it's been a theme that they've been more and more vocal about, like having dolls that have a lot of different clothing options, like for clothes that you would see in the male aisle and female aisle. And I just love that Mattel and people behind Barbie and Barbie dolls, they're really doing that work, you know?
Hmm.
Like, what do you think? Like, when you saw that piece of news, what was your
I thought
reaction?
I actually thought that Mattel had been doing this already
Hmm.
for like the past year.
Yeah, they have
Oh, okay.
with like
I was thinking like
gender.
it only happened now. Like,
Yeah, no, yeah, they have with like gender, with like
well, and they had like
hair and
wheelchair.
yeah, but they added like a
And
new line that has
oh,
like
okay,
the I guess not the appeal, but the highlights were one of the dolls has like a prosthetic leg, and they
right.
have like they've added, I think alopecia was one of the conditions that they are representing, and as well as I can never pronounce it, the one that starts with a V, and it's the one that like the skin.
Oh, Vitiglio.
Yes, yes, that
I
one.
probably said that wrong, but I
I
know what you mean.
I don't know how to say it any better, so there's that. So there's I think they've added dolls that represent that skin condition. That's basically, for people who don't know, it's basically a thing where it's a skin, I don't know if you would call it a disease, or I guess it's a
It's like a
condition.
yeah,
And basically like you have different patches of different like skin tones, because I think it has to do with melanin
yeah.
deficiency. So like you will see there's like little patches in like their hands or their face or whatever. And there's been more and more up and coming models that have that condition. They've been redefining beauty with that, and I love that it's translating into like the doll world, and people get to look at those little dolls and be like, "Oh, that's me. It looks like me."
Or just they like it. Like,
Yeah.
they can grow up being like, I had a doll like this, and they create usually, hopefully, positive scenarios and imagination using these dolls. So I think it's a really positive impact, and I think also that opens up opportunities for Mattel to be sold to little boys too, because
Yeah.
I know a lot of people think that they are only for girls. But you could buy a Barbie. Well, I don't know. Are they still called Barbies?
Um I guess the traditional like blonde with the blue eyes
Is Barbie
is Barbie, because that's the character.
right?
Let me try to find the name, because I think they have
Could just say a Mattel doll.
oh, there you go. It's the Barbie Fashionista line.
Sure.
That's what they call it.
But I think that boys could definitely get in. Like, I mean, I know lots of people identify playing with Barbies as a kid as being gay or being whatever, but like, I don't know. I think that there's something interesting about even heterosexual boys um, or whatever um, playing with dolls. It's you're creating an imaginary world where these dolls live in, right? It's basically
mhm.
like Sims or something. I mean, it is pretty much The Sims.
I mean, honestly, like dolls
Uh,
are basically like the old school Sims.
well, and I think that it's good for parenting too. Like, you can see what your kid thinks a normal social interaction is, or like
Yeah.
if you find that your kid has one character attacking another character, it's a discussion you can have, and I think it's an interesting way to um, see deeper into like your child's progression as a person.
And to normalize
Um,
disability and stuff, because then for that kid, it's not going to be weird for them to go to school and see someone in a wheelchair. They're going to be like, oh, yeah, that's it. I'm used to it. I understand
yeah,
that
I have
people
a
are
doll like
different.
that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So to be specific, the 2020 additions to the Fashionista line, um, they had a doll last year with a prosthetic limb, but this
Mhm.
year's version has a darker skin complexion.
Okay.
They have a new doll that has no hair. They have a Ken doll that has long hair, rather than the typical short hair that he usually would have. Um, they also, like I said, have a doll with vitiligo.
Batiglia.
We don't know how to pronounce that. I'm so sorry, but
That's fine. Let me look it up.
yeah, and they basically a lot of different like clothing options, wheelchairs, um, hair, different skin colors as well, which is really, to be specific, darker skin colors because um, let's be real, usually Barbie dolls are very much, or they used to be very whitewashed,
Yes.
or white centric. So I love that. I love that. And this is not exclusive to Mattel and Barbie. They recently, the American Girl dolls, Girl of the Year. I don't know if this is under Mattel as well, but this is, I guess, a very um, prominent doll brand. They added dolls that include wheelchairs. They include diabetes care kits, hearing
Oh,
impaired dolls, and basically, and dolls that include like walkers and arm braces and stuff
that's
like that.
great.
So yeah,
The accessories help too.
yeah, exactly. Like you can add onto it, I guess, to make the character more accurate. The character, the doll more accurate to like who you are or to whatever story you want to portray as a kid. Even as a parent, like you said, you could dress up the dolls or you could make the dolls portray a specific disease or a specific condition or a specific lifestyle. And you can show your kid, like, okay, this is Veronica and she has a prosthetic arm and here's how you deal with her, and then you
Exactly.
normalize, you say like you treat her just like you would treat Jessica,
Everybody
that
else. Yeah.
so I just love the inclusivity of
Mhm. A good teaching tool too. Uh,
absolutely.
so it is vitiligo,
Okay, vitiligo.
and that is a disease. So the
Okay.
so the cells in your body that produce pigment either die or stop functioning.
Right. So that's why they end up having, I guess, patches for the lack of a better word, because there are certain areas
Yes,
in your skin where, um, I guess the whatever,
melanin.
yeah, whatever melanin, however that's produced, it kind of dies out and it ends up losing color. I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think that's the exact same skin condition that Michael Jackson had, and everybody was saying like, "Oh, he was bleaching his skin, he was doing all these things, but he genuinely had a skin condition." And
I'm not sure.
I think it was that
I thought
one.
it got burned.
Uh, yes, as well. But I think there was something they. I remember there was. I think that might have triggered it or something.
Oh,
Um,
maybe.
because I remember like people weren't like very aware of how the disease worked at the time,
Right.
or they were like, yeah, that's bullshit, whatever. But I think in later years, people have been more vocal about like how people kind of dismissed him as representative of that community, if that makes sense. So because
Right.
it that disease shows itself in different ways. It's not always going to look a certain way. Um, there's obviously it depends on the person and depends on the area of the skin where I guess there's a deficiency in melanin or
They die,
whatever
the cells die,
the
or
cells. Yeah,
have. I mean, my husband has a variant of this disease where it's just like an autoimmune disease. So the cells are attacking the skin cells
oh
because it's whatever's going on there. I don't know.
right, our
Um,
bodies are
but
weird.
yeah, he ends up with little patches that are just like they look bleached, basically.
Yeah,
And they're gonna grow over time, but like it's just skin, and I don't really care if he looks pale as a ghost when he's 90. Like,
yeah.
he's gonna have these little patches. I think it's like whatever.
It's a part of his identity.
Yeah. I mean, it bothers
Exactly.
him, but like, what can I do about it? You know, I just tell him that I don't really care and normalize it as best I can.
Absolutely. And being supportive, because sometimes not having that representation makes people feel weird. It makes them feel like, oh, this is something I should be ashamed of, or this is something that makes me less than, because you don't see the examples a lot of the time. So um, I hope that carries over into other mediums like television, Netflix, movies.
Well, like, I know everybody's making fun of it, but Netflix released that show Tall Girl,
Oh, yeah.
and everybody's making fun of it because it's just a regular white girl and
Right.
she just happens to be tall. And it's like, really? You think people make fun of people because they're tall? Like, I mean,
or
yeah, some tall people get made fun of, but like,
or do you think that's like
they're
a a huge deal in
well, there's
comparison
so many
to?
bigger things that could have been discussed or could have been, use that platform for the important discussions, not just some white girl who happens to be tall and wears size 13s.
Right. Like there's
Like,
bigger issues. Um
and I do understand that there's a demographic for, tall girls because typically girls are a bit shorter. So I can only imagine that very tall girls get made fun of.
yeah.
Uh, but, I feel like in a whole show, there could definitely be a discussion about minorities more. And
Yeah.
I know that I saw some posts about the show that were more like positive thinking or like what I would have done. Um, but I saw some that were about women who wear like hijabs
Mhm.
and things like that because there's not a lot of television, even extras in the shows. They don't have a lot of
Yeah.
people that are like that. So they were saying it would be really nice to have that as a main character and have that as an open discussion and to become more educated about that topic because it's a very prominent issue. And I mention this because I don't want to only talk about LGBTQIA plus people.
Yeah, of
I
course.
think that these other issues are important. Um, she's like 6'2". She got made fun of in
Oh.
school for sure. Well, yeah, of course.
Yeah, but
But like in high school, everybody gets made up for their differences, of course. But
yeah.
like
But
I just like I'm also saying like, maybe tall girl could have been the friend of uh the woman with the hijab or,
yeah,
a black girl who
got made fun of because of her hair or
or
whatever, you
something like
know?
that.
Yeah.
I think that these are very definitely more not necessarily more important, but more prevalent and more pressing and less represented.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's interesting as well because typically there's always a white character who has a black friend
Right.
who's the supporting character or POC, I should say. Um, and so I think it would be nice to reverse that and give opportunities for other people and other actors and um, especially for like even Indian or again with the hijab or uh,
Absolutely.
cultures that especially North America does not know much about or they're very ignorant about.
Yeah, and because you're taking the method of teaching them through a school environment, um, POC people experience a much harder schooling, I guess, cycle, I guess,
Mhm.
than I would, you know? Like, sure, I got made fun of for a multitude of reasons, but it's definitely a whole different set of problems on top of the ones that I have. Like if I get made fun of and I'm white, could you imagine like the things that I get made fun of plus they get the racial stuff. They get like
Yeah,
your eyes look different, your hair looks different. Why do you have that on your head? Why do you have this? And then you have poor representation in media, so people are talking at them in accents or they're calling them
perpetuating.
this. Yeah. So I think it would be very important, and I don't think there are a lot of shows, if any, about like the high school experience from the point of a POC individual.
Hmm.
And I'm not usually into high school scenarios. Like, I haven't seen like Riverdale or anything like that. But if
Yeah.
a story was unique in that sense, or not even unique, because the thing is, like, they're people like us. You know what I mean? Like, they're not like this quirky, unique, like one in a million. Like, POC folk are amongst
They're
us.
everywhere.
They're a part of our society just as much as white people are. So I think even in media, we've become so, I guess, normalized to seeing the white character as a default that nobody even questions it. Like, why isn't like an Indian kid the main character of that show? Like, why can't that be a thing? I'm sure they have way more interesting things to bring to the table rather than, the tall girl. Like, I'm not gonna, it's like we don't want to compare struggles, but I mean,
No, but
she gets made fun of for being tall, while this person gets made fun of for their skin color, their accent, their hair, their this, their that, like their parents. And then they go on the news and you see um, politicians discussing whether or not they should even be in the country and stuff like
right.
that. So it's like there's a whole baggage there that people aren't even aware of, or if they're aware of, they don't really get that shown on TV. Or if they do, it's like a side character. They get an episode arc and then back to the white character for the rest of the season, you know?
Well, and it's another interesting show. I think it was on Netflix. That I'm glad they were released. I'm not sure if it's getting a season two because I don't know how much recognition it got, but it was directed, written, and acted by the same person.
Ooh.
And so it was created by this gay man who has Down syndrome,
Ooh, I think I know what you're talking about.
or I think it was Down syndrome. It was a really good show. First off, like just
Uh,
really good overall. Um, but
oh,
the
I
main
think I'm thinking of a
character,
different show.
the main character is himself, and it's kind of like an almost like an autobiographical show. But I think it's more of like he puts himself in a sitcom,
Mm-hmm.
not like a literal "this is what happened to me" sort of thing.
Right.
Just using his experiences to discuss. But it's interesting, like he shows you his struggles of not only being gay and not only being someone with Down syndrome, but he discusses how the mixture of both make it incredibly difficult just to be himself.
Right.
And in a world where gay people are so vain and uh, it's so complicated, like if you look even slightly wrong in one way or another, people won't even look at you. They're not
Right.
interested whatsoever. Like he ends up hiring a gigolo for his birthday because like he's still a virgin and it's
Aw.
like so complicated thing, and then he still can't get it to work, like super complicated. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely a really interesting discussion to open up about um, adding the mixture of mental disability and uh, sexuality.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
same way, I think it would be really interesting to have shows that kind of mix these things that are not really talked about. Like I think that's more interesting to hear about and almost learn about vicariously because you can do that with really good writing. Like
Absolutely.
like this did. Um, like what is it like for a gay Indian person? What is it like for a trans person from Iran? What is it like for all these things and these cultures that mix up together? I want to know. I want to learn. I think that's
Exactly.
important, especially for white people to learn.
I mean, yes. I mean, I fully
Because we
agree.
don't like we take it for granted. We're like, oh, you're just a regular Joe schmo, and we're gonna make fun of you because of your race. It's like, well, how about we actually look at the full details? Because when they go home, what is their life like? What is their
Exactly.
background like? Knowing is half the battle. And I think if we know more about culture, other people's cultures, I think that people will be less interested in being racist. Um, their stigmatisms or their stereotypes will diminish
Mm-hmm.
or reduce, because they'll be more informed. So I think that shows like that are incredibly important. And um, I like, for example, like I don't know a lot of POC people. I don't know a lot of people with mental disability. Uh, but having watched these shows, it kind of gives you a bit more perspective, and understanding how their anxiety is different or how their world is different than yours, and what you can do maybe to help them or be better, or to be more conscious.
Yeah.
What but like nowadays, like I do have some more friends, which is great. But it's still like a work in progress.
Absolutely. And I feel like there was a movie, I think last year or the year before, it got on Netflix, and it was this romantic comedy about an Asian couple. I don't remember the name. I can't tell you the name. But I remember it being a big deal because it showcased this love story that you usually would see portrayed by white actors, but it had the little nuances of, their home life and the food that they were eating and the culture, like the friend group that they had and the kind of conversations that were being had, rather than a Friends episode, right? So it's really eye opening, and sometimes and as a white person, you can look at that and be like, wow, that's like that's their experience is not that different from ours, but the minutia of things, like there's little details here and there. There's like little, I guess not little, but there's several, I guess, gates that they need to open to get to something that is so easily accessible to
Accessible
me,
for everyone.
or just certain things that don't really get talked about, like, or them even defying stereotypes. Like, let's take an opportunity to get these Asian actors to make fun of these stereotypes, to abolish them, and to show people that they're not true, or to make fun of the reality of some of them, um, but rather than having a supporting character who's a POC being made fun of or being turned into a stereotype, because that doesn't really help anyone, really. It just kind of perpetuates it more, which, it kind of brings me full circle to the beginning of our, chat, when it had to do with LGBTQIA community and misrepresentation on Twitch, and how there's kind of that conversation of pandering to a straight audience makes it so that we kind of perpetuate more and more of the stereotypes or these preconceived notions that sometimes straight people have of us, And if we kind of censor ourselves, or if we kind of adapt to it, and kind of abide to those things, then they will keep throwing money at us. They'll be like, oh my god, the funny gay best friend, or that person is like such a character. Like, they don't take us seriously. They take us as like a little piece of entertainment they can laugh at or laugh with or whatever. But at the end of the day, they don't really look at you as like a valid, not a valid, but they don't see you as like a serious part of the community. They don't see you as a staple to Twitch or to YouTube or to social media. They just see you as like, oh, you're the funny person that I watch like in the morning because you're sassy and you're quirky and you're like all of these things. But it's like, and sometimes people do this without realizing, that's kind of something that
Mhm.
I've learned like in the past 24 hours, believe it or not. Because this was a thread that I talked about, and definitely, sometimes that information, sometimes people aren't aware that they're catering to an audience, and sometimes they don't feel maybe welcome in the community, in the LGBTQIA community, in whatever community. So, wait. Oh, I can't.
There's like a weird like spot right here where it...
Oh no!
Get
Get out of my screen.
out of my box. Stop putting your fingers in my box.
I don't think you can anymore. That's funny. I didn't even notice. Anyway, but yeah, it's important to be aware of that because sometimes you do that without meaning to. And
Yeah.
I've been that person where people would show up to my streams and they would fish for certain like quote unquote catchphrases, or they would do stuff that would trigger me to be like, there was a point where people were being like mean to me. They were like reading me because they wanted me to quote unquote get sassy with them. They wanted me to like read them back. They wanted me to like have this attitude and whatever. And I quickly shut that down. But it was one of the first instances where I was like, oh, there's a stereotype or there's a value that they're seeing in me that doesn't really reflect the full spectrum of who I am, because all of us are multifaceted. We're more than, the sassy sidekick, in fact, we're
Yeah.
our own person. And unfortunately, whether it's a conscious decision or not, sometimes there are people who do abide to those things and they end up developing that kind of audience. And, we talked about it a lot, but even when it comes to the issues of tags and with the issues of just talking about issues that those communities have, at the end of the day, when you develop an audience like that, you end up kind of protecting them so you don't have that conversation. I've noticed that, like, people that maybe, well, not maybe, people that are more relevant than I am, people that have a bigger reach than I do, they end up not doing anything with it because they don't want to offend their straight audience. They don't want to offend their straight subscribers. They don't want to lose subscribers. They don't want to lose followers. They don't want to lose all of that. But it could very easily be an educational moment. You could tell them like, hey, maybe don't call me queen every 2 seconds. I have a name. My name is Ruby. I'm not your queen. I'm not your girl. I'm not your sis. So it's people get afraid of doing that, and people get complacent with it, which goes with a lot of what we've been talking about, which is don't be afraid to be loud about who you are, and don't be afraid to be vocal about, I guess loud is not the best way to say it, but to be vocal about where you stand about things and what change you want to be seen made, even if it doesn't affect you. And that's the bigger problem. Sometimes people only speak about things that directly affect them, and they don't speak, if I'm in the LGBTQIA community and I see someone in the gender community getting dragged on social media or being told that they're not a valid part of our community, I need to speak out for them. I need to amplify their voice. I can't just be like, oh, that wasn't about me, so I'm just going to stay quiet about it, because then the people who don't have a bigger voice or a bigger impact in the community, they're not going to get heard. So, and that applies to shows, that applies to music. We have to be very aware of what we consume and what we support, because we don't want to keep feeding into this cycle of the same content or the same people thriving over others that could be educating us. Like you said, like, we could get so much education out of a comedy show if the leads were non-white.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a big rant. We love you all.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for watching Breakfast at Ruby's. Where can people find you, Chalora?
You can find me on Twitter at Chalora. You can find me on Instagram at Chalora Flora. You can find me on Twitch under Chalora. Or you can check out streamqueens.net.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's it.
And the drag tag, use it, utilize it.
Yeah, that drag tag.
Show Twitch that the tag was a good investment in their coding with their coding team and with everyone who got involved in making that happen. Show that it was a good decision on their part to have it, and hopefully other people in our community will get the same treatment, as if we show them that there's a need for it, and if we show them that we're utilizing them, hopefully it's going to cause for more of a rippling effect into other tags and other things. You can find me as well at Everything Project Ruby. So YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, those are my main three places where I'm active. So yeah, like I said at the beginning, I'm a variety streamer. I do these every Wednesday on my Twitch channel around 5 p.m. GMT time. So hope to see you here next week. This will be up in 24 hours on YouTube. So if you want to listen to this early, you have to watch us live on Twitch. For all of you watching on YouTube, we love you and appreciate you, and we'll see you next week. Bye.